Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to divert our tutorial a little bit, and instead of looking at specific programming languages like Java, React, JavaScript, Perl or PHP or Python, what we're going to do is we're going to take an existing project that we already have done here and we'll see how we can automate this. So today's topic would be about automation of build and deployment. All right, let's get started. So the first thing is, what are we automating? Well, if you're not familiar with my channel, I'll really humbly suggest that you go through some of the videos that I do with various technologies and languages, and I create various applications as well. They are extremely capable and you can pretty much extend it and do all kinds of things. Such an application is this one right here. If you go to my channel, it's going to be in this popular video, the second one on that list. It's basically creating a ChatGPT-like application, like a chatbot that you can talk to using Java, JE, Springboot, and Thymeleaf and all that. That's pretty cool. Go ahead, take a look at it if you have not done so. And you don't necessarily have to go through the entire video in order for this tutorial to follow, but again, it may also help. Okay, so let's get to it. So what are we doing on this one? What we're doing is, let me take you to the source code of this, which is right here. And of course, it is in public, and I'll put these links in the description below of this video so that you can take a look at it and follow it. So if you go through this source code, of course, I typically try my best to put a workflow chart on each of these. So if you look at this workflow, make it a little bit bigger, you got to download the JDK, then you got to get the Eclipse, then you got to check out this ChatGPT thing using JIT, and hopefully you have JIT installed. If you don't have JIT installed, you can install it. Then once you have all that stuff, then of course you got to go ahead and compile and build that stuff. And then before running it, you got to make sure that you have an OpenAI account and you generate an API key, and then you get to run it after you build and created all that, and then you could test with the internet browser with AD80. Now, can we automate this whole thing instead of just pulling all this manual step? Because anytime you have a manual step, they are prone to errors. So again, some people like to call it DevOps, and that's kind of like the concept that you are combining your development and operations. And that's kind of what we're going to do when we're automating, stuff like this. Now, can we automate the entire thing? Absolutely. But today we're going to automate probably not all of this, creating an account and then and creating an API key, because that is more like dealing with a specific user ID, password, and the specific information, which we're not going to get into at this moment. So we're going to assume that you already have an account and have an API key. But without that, we will try our best to automate the entire thing using a tool called Jenkins. So Jenkins is extremely popular tool, and that is pretty much used in any DevOps operation nowadays. Okay, so since we talked about Jenkins, what is that? That is this that we're going to do today. So go ahead, go to this link right here, and I'll put in the description below, and download this. As you can see right here, there is a download button right here. So go ahead, click on this. So once you click on it, it will land you to this page. Of course, you can download various versions of Jenkins or various installable that pretty much can work on anywhere, right? Yeah, there's a version for Ubuntu. If you're familiar with Windows, you can download it for Windows or any other Linux or even Mac. However, we are not going to download any of these things since we are kind of talking about Java and JEE. We're going to download the simplest version as possible, which is this guy right here, generic Java package war. So download this guy. So go ahead, click on any one of those. I think I would do this one. This is the long time support version. So that's one, and that's probably the stable one. So go ahead, click on this, and it will download a WAR file. Once you have the WAR file, then we'll go from there. Once you download it, put it in a folder that you like. So I put it in my folder. I created a Jenkins directory on the C and the 2 projects, as you could see. So this is the file that you would download, jenkins.war. Now, how do you run this? It's basically you're going to have Java installed. Okay. Again, we're talking about Java, so you got to have Java installed. In case you don't have any JDK installed, you can always go to the OpenJDK, this site, and get the latest version, right? It's pretty simple. Just follow the instruction, download it, and unzip it, and that's it. That's what you got to do, and you probably have to put it in your path environment variable, the Java bin directory, so that you can run Java command. So once you have all that, and you downloaded that Jenkins war file, the next step to do would be just run some interesting comments. So I am already, as you could see, in the, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm already in this Jenkins folder, so you can go to your, specific folder wherever you downloaded the war file. As you can see, my war file is right here. And again, you can either do it in command prompt, or also you could do it in your PowerShell as well. Then all you have to do is run java -jar space the name of this file, and just hit enter, and it will actually start a server, literally. And for the very first time, it will actually create an admin user account, and it will also create this password. So be sure to copy this, because you're going to need that. And just wait until this thing says that all the stuffs are created and it's fully up and running. And as you can see right here, Jenkins is fully up and running. And typically, if you do not specify a port, it will run on the port 8080. Okay. So the next step is, once you have that, then you want it to open a tab or your browser, and you want to go to http://localhost 8080 and hit enter. And as you could see, there you go. It says that, hey, good, you got Jenkins up and running. You should see this. And remember the admin password that I copied from that log right here. It's right there. You're going to have to copy that and paste it here, and then continue. And then, of course, I'm not going to save it, and you will get one of these two prompts. One says install suggested plugins, another one says select plugins to install. So what happens is, Jenkins by itself, of course, it's a server, and it relies on a lot of external plugins, because you're going to be using a lot of other tools. For example, if you remember in our flowchart right here, we're going to have to download and get the JDK. Then we're going to have to get the Eclipse. And then the reason we're getting the Eclipse, because we're going to have to run the Maven. And I'm assuming you're going to have Maven in there. So all this thing assumption, you don't need to assume. You can actually have those plugins installed, in Jenkins, so that it's always set and ready. And all you got to do is click on some button, and it will just do all this magic and run your server. So that's the idea. And of course, JIT is another tool that you need to make sure that it's there. But again, you don't need to install all this, and that's the reason we're doing this, to automate the whole thing. So let's see how to do that. So I would click on the install suggested plugins, and then of course it will automatically now start installing all of this list of plugins that you can see. So it will take some time. So just bear with the install process and let it finish. So after it ran for a while, this is how it looks like. It finished, and as you could see, Murphy's Law, it never works for the first time. There is a lot of plugin that looks like it did not work, or it couldn't install them, right? So now you have the option to retry it, or you can continue it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue it, and I will try to go through the errors and see what it is that's causing the issue, and then try to install it. And I would suggest you do it that way. You can definitely try the retry step if it makes any difference, but I doubt it would, unless there was a network issue or something. So again, I'll go ahead and, so after you click continue, you get this screen. There you have to create the first admin user, which will basically override the previous admin user that the system automatically created. So I just created mine, and here's my username, password, and put your username and password, and then go ahead, click save and continue. And then it says that the Jenkins URLs would be this, which is absolutely fine. I know that. Hit save and finish and start using Jenkins. And it will basically take you to this main Jenkins screen. And here you could see that all these warnings and then all these errors, right? It basically says that, there's some stuff that's going on. And this is what I would go ahead and click on first and try to mitigate these errors to find out exactly why all this plugin did not work. Okay, so before I do that, just some little stuff about Jenkins. So this is kind of like your dashboard. We'll come back to the new item. This is where you actually create a new automation. Like a new item is basically that's your automated pipeline or build a deployment agent or script or entity, whatever you want to call it. And then if you go to manage Jenkins, this is where you get to see all kinds of things. And right now it looks like I don't see anything, it's all aired out, but it's kind of misleading because you can scroll down and then you get all these nice little icons, right? You look at system, tools, plugins, nodes, and Jenkins has a very good documentation, so you can pretty much see exactly what each of these are, right? We're not going to go through all of them because of the scope of this tutorial. We're just going to automate what I just mentioned. We're going to automate that ChatGPT like application. But anyway, coming back to the error list of error stuff that we got to fix these, right? And as it says, let's go click on correct. And it takes you to this screen. It's basically nothing but the plugin screen. So let me go back one step. We are on this screen. Once you click on correct, it takes you to that screen, which is nothing but this guy right here, plugin. So this is where it comes. And then here we could go and look at install plugins. And here, whatever you see there is a cross, that basically says you want to uninstall it. Wherever there's a check, that means you are, you've installed it properly. So one of the things that we got to do is look at the list and find out, okay, which one failed and which one we got to go install again. So here it is. Look, for example, if you go through the on-child list, it will tell you exactly which one failed and which one you're supposed to have it installed, but it's not there. All right. You can pick any one of them, but my best guess is all of this plugin depends on one that probably failed, which caused the rest of them to fail. So that would be probably the first one to find out, right? Well, I'll just go from the beginning of this thing. So let's say the dark theme failed, whatever that means. So that's one thing. And then this is probably another one. eChart API plugin failed. Plugin missing Jackson to API. And then, of course, email extension, same thing, Jackson to API. So it looks like, for whatever reason, Jackson to API failed. And then the reason JIT plugin failed is basically this mailer plugin failed, right? So it looks like one of the key one to fix first is either Jenkins to mailer plugin, or the Jackson to API. So let's try to get to those first instead of touching anything else. And there's another one called Bouncy Castle API, whatever happened on that one. Okay. So anyway, so that's kind of like the gist of it. And now the next step would be to figure out how to fix these plugins and where to get the information. Okay, so let's try to fix this thing. So let's try to figure out what's going on with this Jackson to API, why it didn't get installed. The next thing we're going to do is see this download progress. We're going to go click on that guy right there. And here it kind of gives you the summary again, all of the plugin that got installed and was successful and the one that was not successful. You see this Jackson to API, it's got a failure. And the nice thing is you can now look at the details. Let's click on this guy. So here, look at the error. It says basically socket timeout, read timeout. So something bad happened there, caused. Look at this. It says fail to load this API. And it kind of tells you what the error is. Fail to download from this, redirect it to this. So it's probably a good idea to see, okay, maybe this is probably what you were after. So let's copy that URL and see if that works. Copy that guy, and then we're going to go to advanced. since the normal plugin is not working, it's trying to go to this URL. So let's go to advanced settings, and here what we'll do is say deploy plugin. You could browse a file, you can download that file manually, or you could go to a URL, right? So I'm going to go ahead and paste that URL, and I'm going to say deploy and let it do its magic to see if it's going to deploy it automatically. And see it's spinning. You can see right here it's trying to do something, and we'll find out what's going on that one. It's spin for a while, and then what happens is it will get back to this screen right here, and it may seem like this thing's still failing. It's not. It's actually the old message that is showing you what happened. But if you kind of scroll all the way down, if you see this right here, Jackson to API success. So this is kind of like a cumulative log. So the last one that you did, you're loading that plugin extension and then the Jackson to API success. How do you know that? You can go to the installed plugins, and then if you scroll down and come to the Jackson to API, whatever that is right here, you see that? And now it's installed. It's got a good check mark. So we know that that one got installed fine. So you can move on to the next one, which looks like we could either take this guy, the Bounty Castle one, or we could take the install identity, or you could take the mailer and all that stuff. So we should be good to go. So now we kind of know the process. We can attack the next one to fix it. So let's say we want to fix this email extension plugin, right? So the thing to do would be to go to download progress, go to the error for the email extension plugin. It's somewhere right here, which is right here, mailer. So let's see what the problem with this one is. And it's basically said instance identity, okay, failed to load Jenkins plugins because instance identity has a problem. So anyway, it looks like we need to get to instant identity first. So let's go find out what is up with that one. And it's right here. So let's look at the detail. And that one basically says plugin missing, Bounty Castle API, right? So then it's kind of treacherous and it's really annoying. I mean, they should fix this. They should just work, but it doesn't. So here's the Bounty Castle, and let's see, that one has a similar problem. Looks like they got moved to this guy right here. Filter download from this, might have redirected to that. So we're going to copy that guy and then follow the similar process. Go to advanced URL and deploy and let it finish. So it looks like we have a success right there. There's Bounty Castle API success. And so now we could go to the others and actually keep trying to install again, right? So after going to this install plugin, of course, so let's pick up the next one. Let's say dark theme, right? Let's say you want to install that one first on the list, but of course you can't install it from here. It just shows you the status. So let's know the name of this dark theme. Go to available plugins, and you can still search like dark theme like this, and then you can see right here, and just check that box and then install. Now, of course, you could do multiple at the same time, right? So that's probably what I'm going to do to make this thing faster. So the best way to do that would be you can go back and click on this guy and see this list of dependencies. So you can copy this whole list of things and maybe paste it in a notepad, and then go back and start checking the boxes based on that actually. So that's how I would do it. So that's what I already did. I kind of checked all of them and then click on install. That way you are kind of reinstalling those packages, and you can go all the way down, and as you could see, as all of them gets installed. So there is pending and it's going to get installed. We'll take some time. So as you could see, when I install all the plugins again, and all of them got installed properly. But here's another catch. Now if I go to install plugins, I don't see those. Some of them may not necessarily show up. So what happens is if you kind of go all the way to the bottom, it's got a little message saying changes will take effect when you restart Jenkins. So now we're going to go ahead and restart Jenkins. The way you would do it is basically you go back to your command line, if you remember this, and you could either do Control-Z, that will just kind of kill that process, and once it's done Control-Z, you could just restart it back up by doing this. That's it. And let it come. Once that server up and running, you can pretty much refresh that page, and let it reload. And of course, you're gonna have to log back in, and I'll log back in. And as you could see, I'm back in. I don't see any error. Of course, there's this thing alert that basically says that there is a built-in node security issue. You should set up distributed builds. Blah, blah. Let's just just ignore that for now. We're not setting up any agents or anything like that. Okay, so now let's go back to our manage Jenkins rather, and then go to plugins and go to install plugins. And here now you should see that all of our plugins has been installed. That was not there before in the past, and it should just show up without any error. As you can see, there is no error as far as I can tell. So we are good to go. So now comes the fun part. If you remember, our original objectives was basically to automate this build. And all we were doing so far is trying to get the Jenkins up and running, which is fine. It took a while, but we got it up and running. So we're going to go back to the dashboard again. And the dashboard is where we typically start. And of course, I showed you if you go to manage Jenkins, there you get to do all kinds of things, looking at plugins, looking at other variables, setting up authentications. Again, this is out of the scope of this tutorial right now. We are just going to focus on creating a pipeline, or like automate the build that I just showed. This is basically this build right here. So we're going to try to check out from GitHub and then go ahead, start the build, and then of course start the application after that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to install a plugin that is not installed by default in Jenkins. What is that plugin? If you recall our project actually is Maven based, right? It's got a pom.xml. So one of the build step is basically you're going to have to build and compile is using Maven clean and package. So the very first thing we got to do is install Maven plugin. Now, before we install Maven plugin, we need to make sure that you have Maven installed on your local machine. I'm assuming some of them who are familiar with Java and have already gone to my previous video, you should already have Maven installed. In case you don't, you can go ahead and go to this site. I'll put the link in the description below, and go ahead, download and install. It's basically a zip file. You unzip and basically set up a whole bunch of environment variables. Pretty simple. Go ahead, do that, and after you do it, and you can come back to this again. So you gotta have Maven installed, and then you're gonna go click on Manage Jenkins, then go to Plugins again, and go to Available Plugins, and search for Maven, like this. And there's Maven integration, so go ahead, check that box, and say Install, and let it install. It will take some time. Okay, we got the Maven plugin installed successfully. So now you want it to go back to Manage Jenkins, and then we're gonna have to configure the Maven to make sure that it knows exactly where our Maven installable is. So you're gonna go click on Tools, and then you will see there's a Maven configuration right here, right? You use all this default, but then you also got to say what the Maven is installed. So click on Add Maven, and then it will ask you, what do you want to call it? Well, you can just call it Jenkins-Maven, because this is what is going to be listed. In case you have multiple Mavens installed, that's why it asks you this. All right, I don't want to install it automatically. You can, but I'm going to skip that step because I already have that installed, as I told you. So it's asking you what that Maven installable is. In my case, it's installed right here, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy that path and then paste it right here and say save, and I'm done with that step. So I got Maven plugin installed, I got the Maven configured, then I'm ready to build my automated script, right? So I'll go back to my dashboard again, and then this time I'm ready to create a new pipeline. So I'm going to go ahead and click the new items, and I'll use their automatic wizard to build it for me instead of going through all these other options. So since I have Maven installed, it automatically gives me an option for Maven project, and this is exactly what I'm going to click. It needs a name, so I'm just going to call mine something pretty straightforward and simple. That would be this, Maven Jenkins ChatGPT, and then click on Maven project and say OK. And then it will ask me a whole bunch of questions. It will say, do you want to describe this thing? Sure, I'll describe it, what it really does. So it's nothing but it's fetching the code from JIT, and then it's going to build and do a run of the Spring Boot application. That's all this is. All right. Next thing is it's basically saying that, are you going to use any source code management? Yes, I will. So I'm going to use JIT, and then I need to check out my URL, which you don't have to memorize. You can go back here and go up, go to code, copy this, come back here, and there's my URL. And this is not a private repository, so it's public, so I don't need any credentials. And then the branch is not master, it's actually main. So I'm going to change that, and everything else leave default. And then it's basically saying that, hey, before doing the build, and I'm going to leave all this default, not doing anything special on these. Now, there's one thing that we need to be sure about is when we run the Maven build, it creates basically a Spring Boot application's jar file. And when you run the jar file, by default, it runs the Tomcat and it uses 8080 port. The catch is I cannot use 8080 port because it's already used by Maven. So we have to do a little bit of, customization to our port to say that, hey, go ahead, run the Spring Boot, but make sure you use a different port. How do I do that? It's not that hard. What you have to do is there is a special file in the code. So I'm going back to the GitHub, which you will see, and I have to update that file on the fly. And that's why I'm not going to hard code it. So if you go to main resources and go to application.properties file, here you can specify something like a server port. And the port would be something else like 9090, not 8080. So that's what I got to do. That's a manual step that I have to do before running the Maven build. And that's what I need to tell Maven, right? So that's the idea. So in order to do that, I definitely have to run a pre-build step, right? So that's what this is. Before doing any build, I need to run something. So I'm going to go ahead, select what I want to do. I want to run, this is Windows. So for Unix, you can choose shell script, and you can do any other stuff, based on your environment. But I'm going to run a batch script. So this is Windows, and I'm going to say something like this, which is nothing but it's basically saying that, look, put this line that is basically saying server.port equals to custom port. This is 9090 to that file that I just showed you, application properties. This environment variable is actually a variable that Maven keeps track of the workspace that you're currently working on, that it's going to get all of this stuff from the JIT first. So from that workspace, this is the path, just to make sure there is that path right there, source main resources application properties. So it's basically going to go to that path and write down this line to this dynamically before doing the build. And this will make sure that it runs that application on 9090. So that's it. So I'm done with that pre-build step. And then the next thing is, of course, it's all default. I'm going to run the POM XML. And what I'm running, I'm basically running this thing right here, which will do pretty much all of my goals. It's Maven clean, Maven test, and then Maven package. So it will run the clean, it will do the testing, and it will also package up the jar file. Once that happens, of course, I want to choose that then I'm going to do the next step if and only if the build has been succeeded. I don't want to just run the application if the build is not succeeded, right? So that's why I'm going to choose this. And then I need to do the post-build step. That's basically after the build is done, run the application, right? Now there's one more thing I got to do before running the application is set an environment variable. If you recall here, I'm going to have an OpenAI demo API key environment variable. That's something, I assume that you have registered already and it's free. You just can get an API key and you need to put that in an environment variable. So that step I'm going to go ahead and do here. So there will be another post-build step. I mean, not another, I mean to say another custom execution of Windows batch command that's going to happen right after the build is successful. And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set an environment variable, set OpenAI demo API key equals to whatever your key is. I'm not going to show it because that's private information, but this is where you put your key, whatever your key is. And then in the next line, I'm going to go ahead and run the application, which is nothing but java-jar, and this is the jar. And then we are all done. Then you can go ahead and hit save, but do make sure that you're going to put your demo API key, whatever the API key that you got from that OpenAI site. So you hit save, it'll come back to this screen. Then you can definitely go back to your dashboard, and here is your pipeline that is all ready to go. Then all you got to do is go ahead and click on this play button that will start the build, and everything should be good to go. As you could see, it's right here, it started the build, and you can go ahead and drill down and go in there and click on this guy, and you can look at the console output live. You see, everything is happening, all good. It looks like it did the build successfully and already got the code before that. And then right now it's basically just running the application. As you can see right here, the Springboot application has been started, and it has been started on the port 9090, and it's up and running. Right, it's all good to go. It's running great. So how do I test it? All I got to do right now is all done. I didn't do any manual step. All I did is run that build. If I now go to my local host and not 8080, 9090, and hit enter, and as you can see, that application is up and running. So it's all done automatically, right? And you say hello there, and it went and got that answer for me. So looks like it's working. So my OpenAI demo key is also in the environment variable, and looks like the application is up and running. So as you could see, all we did is we pretty much automated this entire thing down to a single Jenkins pipeline called Maven Jenkins ChatGPT. So that was our goal, and we did that. And since it's running, of course, the server up and running. So in case you wanted to stop it, just click on this guy and say yes, and it will be automatically stopped, and it's stopped. So that's how you kind of do it. Now, of course, we did this thing using the wizard, but there's actually a Jenkins files that you can manually create that does each of these steps manually in a list of in a Jenkins comment. Anyway, I think I passed my 30 minutes. If you're interested in that, definitely shoot me a message. I will do another video on that as well. How to write that script. Basically, what I wrote in just point and click and pasting some script, I can literally write the entire script in one big file and show you exactly how to do that. But that was basically the intention of this video. So if this video helped you add some skill set to your list of skill bags, please do not forget to subscribe and like the video and hit that bell icon so that you get notified for the subsequent videos that are going to come in the future. That's all for today. Take care. Bye now. Until next time.